going to ask you a few questions. First question, what was your life like before World War II?
We have to think of the years that you are aiming at, so we can have a good perspective and history of that time in Lithuania and in Europe. So we are thinking of my years in grammar school and high school. So this brings us to approximately 1940 and 41, at which time Lithuania and the other two Baltic countries, Latvia and Estonia, were occupied by Soviet Union. They were occupiers only for 1 year, but it was a very sad year because they were acting as suppressive and cruel occupiers. First of all, Lithuania before that time had recently gained independence and was independent for 20 years. The occupiers were quite cruel and tried to impose their regime, which was communistic, which made matters quite difficult and sad and oppressive, of course. Life before that time was a happy one for me. I went to school, I had many friends, we played similar games.
Okay, so next question, what prompted you to leave? So why did you decide to leave Lithuania?
So going back to the history, that brings us back to 1941. The war started and Lithuania was caught in between two great powers, Germany and Soviet Union. And another set of occupiers came to the country. These are Germans with Nazi regime and started to march eastward. That means all three Baltic countries were occupied as well, and the front started to move into Russia. And this front was moving on for 3 years, going eastward with successful occupation of Russian territory. However, with the help of United States joining into the war, the German successes became not so obvious, and the front started to move back towards west. And the front was imposing difficulties for the population to witness all this, because as Soviet occupation was threatening now, and after having lived 1 year of these occupants, it was very difficult decision what to do next for the population. So my parents started to think about leaving the country. It was quite frightening to hear the bombs and to hear the shootings in the front during daytime, and to hear the fires of the front, how it was moving. And very often I felt some some butterflies in my stomach. That was plain fear. What will happen when the front moves into our rather small town of Biržai with approximately 15,000 population. But that hour came, and decision by my parents was made to escape the route to the seacoast, the Baltic seacoast. Please look on the map. It's a small
I'll put a map on it.
Small sea, and the plan was to get acquainted with fishermen and get into one of their small fisherman boats and try to make it across the Baltic Sea.
Okay, good. So that leads into the next question, which is, where did you go after that, and how did you escape?
First, we got connections to a German army truck which picked us up, 4 families that were friends, and we together piled into the truck and drove to the seacoast. And the next stop was Palanga, which is a sea resort on the coast. And there we stayed about a month, living more free life because we did not hear the noise from the front so much for a couple weeks, which was actually very peaceful and very secure feeling that we were not in the middle of the front lines now. But that did not last very long, and after several days we started to hear faint noise from the front, and then we started to see the fires from the front every night. So it was time to move on, and the big efforts were made to get better acquainted with the fishermen, to pile into the fishermen's boats and go to Sweden. And that happened during the night because the coast was still guarded by the Germans, the Nazis, and if somebody was caught, they were arrested and put into prison in Latvia. That's the next Baltic state north from Lithuania. So luckily we got in contact with fishermen, and they themselves decided to leave the country. Altogether 16 people in a boat that was approximately 8 meters long and 2 meters wide. I let you calculate the metric system into inches and feet. So it was still dark as we left, and we piled in too many people and too much luggage, which was actually not very valuable, mostly clothing, and left the seashore. And after a while we heard that the other fisherman's boat also joined the initial boat, and we were supposed to connect up, but we never did. So 3 families got separated, which was a sad event. In the middle of our travel, it was daylight by now, we encountered one boat in the distance that seemed to be a fisherman's boat, and then we started to see another big boat which seemed to be a naval ship. In other words, it was a military ship, and we really got frightened that we are caught now. But as the ship approached, we recognized that it was a Swedish flag, and everybody was so joyful. They were not Russians and they were not Germans, but there was a flag of a neutral country. As the boat approached, we verified that indeed this was a Swedish boat, and we communicated with the naval officers in German, because there were people in our group speaking German as well as Swedes speaking German. They were very kind. They gave us immediately something to drink. We didn't have any food nor water on the little fisherman's boat, and that was very kind gesture, and we appreciate it. So the naval ship told us that they could not take us on board. However, they would pull us into an island, and they were already starting to get organized how to receive refugees. And they received us also, and put up tents for us on this island, and we slept there the first night. And we were so relieved. We were so happy that we were alive. The only unhappiness was that we were separated. 3 families were separated. The next morning, we got breakfast or lunch, and they were hot dogs, and they tasted so sweet to us. And somebody mentioned that, oh, Swedes like eat little cakes and cookies, and they love sweet things, so even hot dogs were sweet. But of course, we were just so happy that we were free.
Okay. Thank you, Daina Variakojis, for your interview. Okay.
That's all.